Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Oh, he's British.
I just got done watering my plants.
Okay, and we're British today.
I was like, what's
haven't
happening?
really-
I haven't been around y'all today because I've been working on messages. So what's happened to Philip?
I haven't seen
I've
anybody
been
today
tending
either.
to the garden. I've been tending the garden. It's a hot summer day.
Oh,
Oh my
dear.
goodness.
Outside at lunch,
Oh,
and
dear.
my plants needed a drink. They looked thirsty, and I was like, Pastor Michelle would not approve of these thirsty plants.
Welcome to Second Take at Eastlake, a podcast of Eastlake Community Church in Irmo, South Carolina. You are invited to join us any Sunday at 9 or 11.
Oh, dear.
So I watered it.
So you're playing in the Bible, are you?
Every day you have to water your plants, huh, Michelle?
Every
You
day?
do. I'm
Every day I water
trying.
'em.
I have like irrigation, but I'm having lots of problems with it. And I thought Andy had helped me fix it, but
Still
it's
not.
kicked me off again. I don't know. He comes in tomorrow. I'm gonna talk to him.
He'll be at Summerama tonight
Okay.
because I've been talking to him about it.
Big old summer rum.
Big old summerama.
Yep. Well,
So
I'm actually not even blowing smoke, guys. I actually am serious with what I'm about to say.
oh boy.
I missed you guys today.
Oh,
Everybody's running around,
It's been a crazy day.
all the things they got to get done, and that's good. But it was a little bit of is it time for podcast, Ed? Is it time for podcast? You probably noticed I sent the link early.
I
did
got a little
notice
worried.
that.
I had to
was
check
like-
the time. I was worried y'all changed the time without telling me because I was working on messages instead of being
Yeah.
in the world.
No, I was actually just kind of lonely. But
Yeah.
I'll make it. Don't worry.
I'm glad you'll make it.
Yeah.
'cause
So
it's-
Rob,
it
you'll
would
be at
bad.
the church tonight. Michelle, will you be there at all? Today
I
or
don't
tonight?
think so because I have got to finish my message for Sunday. And get my tech notes since, like Andy will probably be in Thursday to do what he does. So,
Yeah.
Hmm.
'Cause I'm coming
unless
there
a
right after
miracle,
this.
huh?
I'm coming there right after this.
Okay,
Hmm.
I'll be a
Well,
little.
I'll be
I'll
here.
a little later.
but
makes
Savvy's coming in.
If you guys get any video tonight, I mean, Landon's going to be capturing video too, but if you get any, tag Eastlake in it so we can share it.
Okay,
I'll definitely be there getting some video. See, Michelle, you're finishing your message for Sunday. The problem with me going out of town for the next 2 weekends with students is I
Yeah.
have to have my message for the 25th basically wrapped up by tomorrow morning.
yeah,
Or I am in trouble because
feel your pain there.
I'm speaking twice next week at the event we're at. And so I finished those notes and sent them in this morning. And I'm trying to get my other ones done.
Yep. Then they
Busy
all
people.
pile up together.
Woo! Piles.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I got to catch up and finish this book is this series based on the book? I mean, we're just starting it. By the way, we're in a series called Suffering Through the Summer, based off of the book by a guy that we all love and respect, Paul Tripp, and it's called Suffering. But yeah.
Lots of good words in this
Yeah.
book.
Yep, lots of good stuff. And the audiobook is available, which is even more fun. You can ride a tractor while you listen. Yeah. Speaking of suffering through the summer, how's the temperature out there for you guys? Everybody doing okay? Staying
Well,
hydrated?
Temperature's fine. The problem is it's like somebody's having a giant bonfire up the road because of this forest fire in Canada. You can
Oh,
can
yeah.
smell it already. It's all over the
Really?
east. Yep. There's fire. There's air. We have an air warning right now.
We
Yeah,
do?
I've
we
been
do.
out there breathing it.
Yeah. And then where you can pray for us. Where we're going with the students, we're just south of it. We're not anywhere near the fire, but we're gonna get a lot of the smoke.
Well, you could take your masks that are left over from the pandemic.
Yeah, ironically, I burned them. So
Oh, ironically. Yeah.
And I know Mandy, who's going on that trip with you, she knows what to do about smoke in the air because we came from California. It burns up all the time.
it's just like being in Washington.
You just
Right
keep
now.
on
Yep.
going.
Yep.
It'll go away.
Yep.
Keep on rolling.
Okay.
Anyway, so you guys want to get into something worthwhile here? Something of value to bring to the people? I feel like we've come down from the mountain with nothing but wisdom and things to offer to our East Lake friends.
Okay.
So no
Down
pressure.
from
I
the
mean,
mountain.
I don't have anything to offer, but I looking into your 3 eyes. Wait, there's 6 eyes between all 3 of you. I feel like there is more wisdom than most people are ready for. So we're going to get right to it because there's some good stuff. So we're in a series called Summer. Oh, Rob, we're in a series
Suffering.
called Suffering Through the Summer, based on the book by Paul Tripp, T-Rip.
Mhm.
And one of the coolest things is, well, it just like first, let's just say, Ray, why in the world would you pick a series like this through the summer? What were you thinking?
Ah,
So every summer since I've gotten here, we have done these really fun, lighthearted,
Fluffy.
disjointed series, Proverbs, the Summer of Psalms, and I personally, after spending time in prayer about it, felt like we needed to dig into something that everybody's experiencing, and that's suffering on some level. And so the rub is always that, why would you do that during the summer? You're going to have lower numbers during the summer. If we did everything driven by when we think people would be here, we'd be chasing our tails all the time.
We'd be like Chuck E. Cheese back when they were legal.
no summer, no football,
Can't do anything at the
That's right.
holidays.
no holidays. Right.
March Madness is coming up. Everybody's busy.
Yeah. And so I thought we should do something that we are all going through, but yet feel ill-equipped to go through.
Yeah, everybody
I was with
deals
some
with
pastors
suffering.
earlier that are suffering through things, just natural things, kids graduating, empty nesting, and marriages are in crisis. Okay, so let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is a great book, by the way, that we recommend getting and going
Absolutely.
through.
Yes.
It is a great
Mhm.
read. And then when you're done with it, you can keep it like everybody does, and then wait till somebody that you love is going through suffering and share it with them. You can pass the blessing on. So
Mhm.
it's a good one, worth reading and worth keeping to share. Because I keep all my books, right, guys?
All of them. You keep them somewhere.
In your Kindle.
Right. The ones that Kristen don't get rid of.
We're trying, guys.
Well,
We're trying out here.
and in addition to the book, I just want to point out that small group discussion notes are back, and you don't even have to be in a small group to use them. You can use them for your personal devotions. Sherilyn was doing that, right? Ray? Yep.
Yeah.
So-
I woke up yesterday morning and she said, let's do the small group discussions. Like, I haven't even washed my face yet. What do you? And so there we were.
There we were.
Suffering with a dirty face.
Yep. Wait a minute. You wash your face every morning? Okay. Oops. I better do that. Anyway, sorry guys. We'll get off of the hygiene stuff. I'm gross. Nobody.
Yes, because this is not going to go anywhere good. So let's go someplace different.
Okay. So, and also, Michelle, if there's some of those questions, which I don't have in front of me right now, but that we missed, that you're like, ooh, we should ask this, feel free to ask.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. I'll pull them up.
But I'll get us started with this thing on this question that the book asks. And it says, what do you bring to suffering? And so this is a cool one for us to kind of answer personally. And he gives 7 examples. There's probably more, but this is a pretty good list
Mhm.
And I'll go through it. Let's see if I have it pulled up on here. I don't, but I have it written down, so no worries. I don't have his notes written in here, but I have mine. So, number one, these are things that people bring into suffering. So let's say your kid won't act right. I don't know. Let's say you have a illness in the family, you get a bad diagnosis. These are the kinds of things that most people bring to suffering. First one, poor theology,
Mm.
which is basically like I'm suffering because God is punishing me for my sin. That would be an example. Like the only reason I have cancer is because I sinned, or I'm a bad mother, I'm a bad father. That's why I have this, which is poor theology. So that's
Well, and
one.
it's bad if you say that to yourself, but it's really bad if you say it to somebody else.
Mhm.
You must have sin in your life.
Oh,
Yeah, actually, I've jokingly said that to some of you guys, but I was
yeah.
joking. I was joking.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
and I think what happens to a lot of people, and this is the answer to the question, why do we preach this? Because the gospel promises suffering, and poor theology tells us the gospel promises us the opposite.
Yeah.
And so good theology requires that we embrace the idea of suffering. So,
Yep. Very true. So that was the first one. The second one is doubt of God. And my notes were just suffering exposes what has been in your heart all along. Like this idea that things get difficult and all of a sudden I question my faith. I question, like, is any of this real? Is that how you guys would describe the doubt of God?
Doubt the character of God, if he's good,
yeah.
if he's kind, if he cares. Doubt
Mhm.
says he must not be those things if this thing is happening to me.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Because we either tend to think that God either is not a good God because there's suffering in the world, or that he is unable to respond because surely he would.
Yeah.
And neither of those are right, but that creates doubt,
Mhm.
It's good.
So that's number two. Number three, unrealistic expectations of life.
There's my Achilles heel.
Michelle outed herself. I didn't even get to that part of the question.
Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. All right, anyhow.
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back to that.
Unrealistic expectations of life. Like, yeah. So we'll come back to that one. That's a good one. And then the other one is unrealistic expectations of others, of everyone around you. Another one, number 5, would be pride. In my note that I put on there was, we forget that every cell is dependent on God. Like every cell of our body, everything is dependent on God. So there's this like pride of like, I'm in control, or I got this. So these are, once again, in case you guys are just joining in, what the things that we sometimes bring to suffering. That was number 5 of 7.
Yep.
Okay. Here's number 6, materialism. This one was interesting. The tendency to place too much of our security in physical things. I'll say that again. The tendency to place too much of our security in physical things. Number 6.
Philip, I would
Yeah.
add, and it's also a way that we attempt to circumvent suffering.
Ooh, like,
Mm,
well, maybe if I get this far, if I get this, then suffering won't come my way. Yeah, that's a for sure right there. That's definite.
Yep.
So what do you bring to suffering? That was number 6. Here's number 7, selfism. I want my way and my agenda.
The American way, baby.
Yep. My way.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
It's freedom. Freedom is defined by what I think is important. And so my agenda is what matters, and all the other ones must be whatever anti you're talking about.
Yep.
And so when we're in suffering, we tend to find ourselves being victimized, quote unquote, by other opinions or other positions.
Yep.
You ever ask yourself, when in a foreign country, why don't they speak English here? Oh,
yeah. It's only the newest language on the planet.
Yep. You mean the whole world
Yeah.
doesn't revolve around us? There's a whole other world out there. You know, it's interesting, true fact. So when I lived in California, California is just like that with America. Like it operates independently. When you live over there, you're separated by desert. Like you genuinely, and I did this too. You just kind of forget that the rest of the world exists. Like you're in California, like we're like our own little country over here. Oh yeah,
Texas.
yeah, Texas
And
is a lot like that. California is more though. I've lived in Texas
Okay.
too. By far, like there are many, 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 many Californians who have never ever left California. There's no need. They'll go to other countries, but they won't go to the rest of America. They're like, I got everything. I got mountains, I got beach, I got this, I got that. Why would I leave?
Right.
It's crazy. Anyways, okay, back to this. So what do you bring to suffering? Poor theology, doubt of God, unrealistic expectations of life, unrealistic expectations of others, pride, materialism, and selfism. Are there any of these that stick out for you that it's like you have to work against? Like we're humans, guys. I know, contrary to like maybe 5 people out there that think you're perfect. I know you're not. And so just like, is there any of these that, you know, you see yourself prone to, or any that you see yourself really good at? We can also be good at some of these, avoiding these.
Is that number 2, Rob, or
I have,
2 of
I have,
them?
I have 2. One of them happens to be number 2
Okay.
because, you know, I have no excuse to doubt God.
Yep.
All I have to do is turn around and look at my kids. I mean, I know I talk about that a lot, but I'm telling you, God has shown up in every single moment, even when it's felt like he's taking too long.
Yeah.
But the humanity in me still is like, well, this is the one time he's finally going to do it. He's going to say, that's it. I'm not as good as you thought I was. Take that.
Yep.
And there's no truth in that. That's bad theology. Back to number 1, bad theology, because it's just ridiculous. And the one that goes with that is unrealistic expectations of life. The 2 of them go right together. Because for me, I've worked so hard. He's allowed me to carry myself out of a lot of trauma from my childhood. That there are times I can kind of be like, really, can't we just be done with that? Can't life now just be easy?
Mm-hmm.
Comes out of that. And the bottom line is, I am who I am because life wasn't easy. So my expectation should be God is going to use everything to make me more of what he wants me to be the next time too. So those 2 go hand in hand.
Yep.
You could say all 7, but the ones I find
Yeah.
myself back into all the time are those 2.
Yeah. That's fair, man.
Yeah.
Easy to do.
Yeah,
Anything else?
I outed myself at the beginning, unrealistic expectations of life. I like when things work. I do not have a lot of tolerance for things that are broken and stay broken. They frustrate me. And so
Listen
that is
to her
an
tone.
unrealistic.
Just
Huh? Yes.
listen to
Yeah,
her
she got-
tone.
Listen.
Let's
I
see if she's
know.
that passionate when she preaches on Sunday.
Okay. So yes. So, you know, I would like to think that when things are going good, I'm like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. Now, it should just stay like this.
Yep.
I have at least come to understand that that's an unrealistic expectation. I can't say that I'm embracing it, but you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
That's fair. Yeah. What about you, Ray? Are you flawless?
I would say that I'm akin to my sister. It's unrealistic expectations of life and of others. Because I think they have a tendency to flow one into another. Unrealistic expectations about myself. I shared on Sunday that I never thought I would need these, that I would just somehow escape, you know, getting into heaven and not having to have a pair of these on my face. But clearly that's not the case. And then sometimes because we can be lazy, we can assume that people are further along in their faith than
Yes,
they
good.
really are.
Yep.
I mean, I'll never forget my first 5 months of pastoring, leading a church. I spent a lot of time doing marriage counseling. I mean, it was like they announced that I was the campus pastor, and everybody that had marital problems scheduled an appointment with me. And so after so many appointments, I just yelled at God and said, why won't they just do right? And you know, when it feels like all the air has left the room
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it's like stupid quiet. And then that's when God slides in my personal DMs and says, they do right? Why won't they do right? And then you know he's nailed you to the cross
Mhm.
because you are they.
Did you just
Yeah.
say my personal DMs? Did you just use
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I
I
just
did. I
used his
did.
I had to
personal.
make sure I heard you right.
I got to get
God
on that
slides
link.
into it. You know how God slides into our DMs and
Yeah.
leaves a little message. You like, I'm sorry.
I keep picturing just messenger app popping up and God's kind of like, come on now.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Doesn't everybody wish that were that way? You
That's
know?
right.
I
Yeah.
do.
Just send me a direct message, please.
Please.
What
I'll do
about
it.
you, Philip?
Oh man, you guys didn't know it was perfect. I had you fooled, huh? I mean, I didn't have you
Yeah.
fooled. Okay. Probably my worst one is selfism. I want my way in my agenda. That's probably the biggest thing that God has been teaching me, I'd say over like 5, 6 years, 7 years of just like, I'm so used to doing, to being in charge and just doing what I think needs to be done and just go and, and I pivot quickly. And I do the same thing with suffering. Like this isn't supposed to be happening, like I want it. This is what I want to happen. And even, I mean, I'll even say, even whenever I was going through the stuff with my mom and having cancer and she passed away from it, like even to the point whenever it was like, I even was praying, God, take her, like no more suffering. Like this is what I would do. Come on, God, it's time. She's suffered enough. And so I think probably selfism, my way, my agenda. And then there's a frustration whenever it doesn't work that way. So that's probably one of my weakest areas. I don't know if you guys said your best area, but probably my best is actually the opposite of Michelle's, which would make sense because our personalities are so opposite, I guess. But I expect the worst a lot of times. Like I almost like plan for it to go bad to a fault. So maybe that's a fault, but like I call myself a professional shock absorber all the time. Just like, yeah, I'm not surprised that, the power went out. Like, that's what happened. I'm not ever like, are you kidding me? I'm more like, that's about right. So I kind of expect bad things to come. I don't know if that's a negative or a positive, but that's something that I do.
That's interesting, Philip. So do you expect bad things of people or just bad things of like stuff to be busted and not work? And
I'll say this, and
good
you guys
question.
can disagree with it, because you guys I highly respect you and you can disagree. But I have said this, these words have come from my mouth. Sometimes we need to expect less of people and expect more of God. I don't really expect a lot out of people. I'm not surprised when there's a giant exposed sin in a church. I'm not usually surprised when something, it's not, I'm not, you guys know me, I'm not negative,
Right.
but I do not think that anybody's perfect. I don't know. What do you
Yeah.
guys think about that?
well, I was just thinking the reason I asked it, because as you were talking, I was like, yeah, my unrealistic expectations usually have to do with processes and objects and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I don't get, not that I never get frustrated with people, because we're all human, we get frustrated with people, but like you, I mean, I like plan for people not to be on time, not to be able to do what I've asked them to do, not because I feel like I have to be ready. Just like you said, you plan for it with things broken. I plan for that where people are concerned, but where stuff is concerned, I just want to I want to get in my car and turn the key and it work. So It's just different perspective for me with those those two expectations.
Mm-hmm. Were there any of that's good, Michelle? Is there any of these that you guys looked at and you're like, you know what, that's not me. Like, I don't bring that to suffering. I've kind of got this one down. I mean, I would say for all three of you guys, Rob said this was kind of a struggle. No, he said doubt of God, but I would say poor theology is not you guys' thing. I mean, you guys have your theology down. I mean, and as an outsider looking in, I wouldn't say materialism for you guys. But any of those that you're like, no, I got this one.
I was going to say that one, the theology one. I always find it weird though to self-declare that my theology is good. So, I'm always very
Yeah.
leery of that.
There needs to always be humility in
Let him
theology.
say it. Let him say it.
That's right. He said it. So I'm just going to say, I agree with Bill.
I do think
Yeah.
that the people so you're right, Rob, the people who think that they've gotten it figured out, those are always the ones that I'm like, I'm watching you a little extra close.
But I will
I-
say
I-
my life has taught me to lean into that theology that I mentioned specifically. That I did a study early on when I was trying to figure out why all my problems didn't go away. And I did a study of the gospel and of the word of the gospel and the promises of the gospel. And we have got it so flipped upside down. I mean, everything Jesus promised was the opposite of what we think in our Western culture we're supposed to get when we become saved. He said, no, you will be persecuted. They will speak poorly of you in my name because of my name, all of that stuff. And even though I don't love it still, because I'm a feeler, I can rest in the fact that, okay, God, you told me this was part of the deal.
Yep.
So in that sense, I would say my theology is pretty solid because I took the time to figure out why didn't everything just turn around, within a couple of years, and my sins were dropping off. But I'm like, well, this is still a lot of work. Actually, this feels like more work because the reality is if you're going to trust God, you really do have more work, not because the work gets you good with God, but because you care about the things that are in you that need to change. And so it feels harder because it is.
At least in my denomination, I know that we spend a lot of time like bringing people into salvation with this like sales pitch of like turning your life around. And we honestly would kind of paint it in a light that like things are going to get better when you give your life to Christ, which is not even a thing, but it was kind of a tactic to get you down to the altar, right?
Well, I was working on these messages for next week, where there'll be 100+ students listening, to those of us that are speaking. And I'm like, I have the night of presenting the gospel. And I talked to the team about the fact that I don't want to do some rosy pitch of the gospel. I want to call us to, and our theme is courageous. So everything is about being courageous. And so I'm using the idea of courage to change, which is not something easy, because courage is something that's hard to muster up sometimes, right? I'm not saying that the gospel is hard to receive, but we have to have the courage to say to God, okay, here I am.
Mm-hmm.
You already know me, but I'm going to reveal myself to you and lay myself bare. And so as I challenge the kids that might not be Christians, I'm going to be like, hey, have the courage to just trust Jesus to show you what's next. If you know Jesus, have the courage to be honest about the fact that you're looking at porn.
Yeah.
I mean, just have the courage to turn that over. That's the gospel. And that's going to create a lot of work for you.
Yep.
Not work for salvation, but work for sanctification. So.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, Rob. It's a more accurate way to invite people to give their life to Christ.
And I know some of them might watch, so I don't, but are we going to put something on the cross? Or are we going to have them come forward and write a note? And I'm like, I'm done writing notes.
Yeah.
We're gonna respond. I'm not anti that stuff, but it's like, for me, I want to write down some action steps that they're going to hold on to. They're not releasing them. They're holding them.
Yep. I think that's awesome, man. So this is kind of an interesting question that I mean, we could be all over the board on this one, but so we're in a series called About Suffering, and social media is a massive part of all of our lives. Myself, I mean, all four of us are heavily involved in social media in different ways. How do you feel about social media and suffering? How do you feel about expressing suffering how do you feel about let's just talk social media and suffering. Now that would be a book. We'll let Ray write it. Social Media and Suffering
It's like, nope.
by the great Reverend Raymond Earl Washington. How do you feel about social media and suffering? Because there's a lot of noise out there. Woo!
Yeah. I think so right now you have probably 2 to 3 camps that exist as it relates to social media. You have those that are attempting to show and only show the best parts of their life. Then you have the camp that feels like they're going to share every possible thing with you. So that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then you have those that are what I like to consider like the martyr crowd, who just share the ugly to gain some type of support and some sympathy and all those things.
Mhm.
I think anything you share, and I'll say for me, here's what I do. I prayerfully share the things that I believe God wants me to share.
Mhm.
Yep.
Because I don't ever want it to be said is that I've never known that Ray hasn't been stressed or that he hasn't shared that what he is having to walk through isn't difficult. I remember when in 2020, it's so funny. Now when I think of the month of June, it's like that's another anniversary for another thing for me.
Hmm.
And so I remember it will be later this month, June 29th to be precise, that I was announced to the church as the lead pastor. But I also remember it was the very next day that I went and got tested and had COVID. And no one at our church at that time had COVID. And so I don't know who all was a part of the conversation, but I remember Leah was the person that called me and said, "Hey, Ray, would you consider doing a daily live on our church Facebook page so that people would see you and know how you're doing and what's up?" And it never dawned on me how weird that would be. But I mean, once I started doing it, I saw how helpful it was.
Hmm.
Because it didn't allow people to create a narrative of what was happening with me, because I basically told you what was happening with me.
Mhm.
I was asymptomatic, so I didn't have some of the most worst effects of it, and so that's for everybody to see.
Mhm.
When Rob had it, Rob let us know that, hey, it ain't going well.
It was yuck.
And
But-
Philip didn't post nothing out of
Nothing, not a drop. And we're still waiting for Michelle.
What was funny about Philip is that Philip went in his shell, and all he did, he came out for popsicles.
That's
it.
what I was just thinking. The only thing we heard from Philip is send popsicles.
I wanted him so bad.
Oh my gosh, you were the popsicle boy. It was great.
I wanted him so bad. I was just craving those things, man.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I remember because Ray took you some, and like the next day you're like, I ate the whole box.
Uh-huh. They were gone. COVID did not steal my appetite. That's for sure.
Oh
So-
man.
Well, I think people, Ray, I think the other thing we see with social media, I agree with you on your 3. I think those are the 3 types. And then there's one other one that is doing it specifically just as an influencer who's really not sharing anything personal. I think that's a new group that's emerging where you're not getting any kind of reality of life at all. And they're admitting that. They're just like, I'm
Right.
promoting something.
Right,
But
right,
I
right.
think people have a propensity to feel more like they're suffering because it's easier to bully people on an
Mm.
electronic medium. And so I'm
Mhm.
seeing in young people, the teenagers that Malcolm and I work with, and even younger that Laura work with, they're beginning to feel a little bit more bullied, which is a form of suffering.
Mhm.
It's happening more and more in these weird corners of the earth that nobody's seeing. So they're
Yeah.
doing it across these platforms in hidden ways. And so I think that there is an increase of honest suffering or
Mhm.
wrong, or people treating people poorly.
Mhm.
because of the advent of some of the social media platforms and communication venues that exist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, keyboard warriors or something.
Yeah. Did you want to add something, Michelle?
Mm-mm,
No.
no,
Nope.
sorry.
I think for me, you know, I don't know that everybody loves this about me, but I don't always, rarely feel the need to share a struggle, or a suffering situation in my life on social media. So the positive to that is that there's a lot of people in my life that I do share that with, and that scratches the itch. I don't feel alone. I don't feel the need to put it out there, because that desire for community and to have you know, like to have other people with me in the fire, if you will, is met through other avenues. So that's nice.
Mhm.
But the negative is that it does put out the image that everything's always perfect. And that's hard, because, you know, I mean, I remember, I don't know if it still is, but I think it still is, my Instagram, whatever bio says, posting life's highlights. Like, I intentionally just post the things that I want to remember and the highlights of life. I don't post that, you know, I've been working on my truck for 10 hours and I broke it and it cost me more than whenever I started working. You know, I don't post the failures. I post I finished the truck today, you know, and I'm excited about it. So the negative is that people only see that side of me. I don't know that there's a great answer to it. But it is, I do think so. One of the reasons I bring this up is I think it's important to see people where they're at on social media and to love them where they're at. So if somebody is calling for acknowledgement of suffering or whatever, you know, to meet them in that need. But also a negative, could be, I mean, I'm just discussing this, so this isn't like right or wrong, but don't look at people like me that don't post anything when they have COVID. I just don't look at them and think, oh, their life is way better than mine. You know, that I don't think that, but I think that there are people who would think that. And we have to have you know, an awareness of, we're all people. We all
Yeah.
That's
have
right.
hurts. We all have victories. You know, we all have different things. And something somebody really smart said to me that I've been trying to put into practice is to see where people are at. Michelle, you probably already know this. All your coaching stuff, I can't stand it. But you know, like to see people where they're at and try to meet them where they're at. So one of the things I think this is actually interesting. I'm talking a lot, so sorry about that, but I really think this is interesting. One of the things when I moved to the South that was shocking to me was everything is a pray for me. In California on the West Coast, nobody says that. And if you did,
Mm,
it's like you're going to stop and you're going to pray for them right there. Like if somebody pulls out the pray for me card, it's like, yo, it's time. Call in the
Okay.
warriors, you know. And in the South, I mean, I'm serving coffee in the mornings, like pray for me that this keeps me awake, you know, like pray for me is just like a slogan. So one of the things that I'm trying to do that I'm learning from a counselor is to meet people where they're at. If somebody comes to me and that is something that's a big deal to them, then it's a big deal to me. And just to like meet people at night, it's not my duty to judge whether their suffering is worthy of my time. It's just to meet them where they're at. I don't have to join them in their suffering per se and start to suffer, but to meet them where they're at. And so I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Should I fire that counselor?
no.
Yeah.
I think it is really important to recognize where people are at. And you know, when my kids were little, they would get frustrated when people complained about their parents, or because they didn't have an intact family. And so when other kids would complain about their family. My kids felt like they don't know what pain is. They've never,
Very true.
you know. And so I worked when they were kids to remind them that everybody's worst suffering is their worst bit of suffering. And
Yeah.
so you can't compare, because what is the worst day in my life is my worst day. And what's the worst day in your life is your worst day. In fact, I was sitting with somebody earlier this week when we were talking about suffering,
Mhm.
and they made the comment that you don't want to win the suffering contest. You know, like you really, because if you win, you lose.
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
you know, yeah. And so you really do have to accept this is where people are in their life experience. This is their tolerance to suffering. This is the worst thing. And it may feel to you trivial in comparison to maybe what you've been through, but
Mhm.
it's still their worst thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's so wise. Yeah. Mm.
I think meeting people where they're at is what Jesus excelled at. And
Yep.
then through the
Mm,
power of the Holy Spirit, the Spirit can give you insight on what, if any, role you're to play in moving them along into their
Mhm.
next steps. But
mhm.
far too often we think we're automatically there to move them along into their next steps. And
Right.
that's not always true. I do think that as we build relationships with people, we owe it to them if we see, agreeing with you, Michelle, completely, but if we see flaws or lies in what they're believing about themselves or their situation in the context of relationship, you know, Jesus would take the time to say, yeah, but don't you know that there's better? And here's
Mhm.
the lie you're believing. But that's not the stranger on the street, unless it is. I mean, I think we can all share times when God put us in front of somebody at a crucial moment where we sense that God put us there to share something with them. That's
Mhm.
not every person we meet, though.
Right.
Mhm.
But in relationship, meeting people where they are is essential. Like, let's think about LGBTQ and debate in our culture right now. Not political discussion, but that is the big hot button issue. When I encounter somebody who has been bullied for their LGBTQ AI plus position or lifestyle, am I supposed to immediately decide to tell them where I think they're flawed? If I do, or am I supposed to make sure that they feel safe and
Mm.
heard by a person that cares about them? That's the one I'm supposed to do, by the way. But we think we're supposed to confront them on some big thing and bring a message to them. And
Mhm.
that's why, back to social media, it's almost comically sad to watch some of the social media posts of people that feel like they're on a crusade.
Mhm.
There's real human beings on the other side of this discussion.
Yep.
It's not a position, it's people.
Yep.
And we've got to figure that out.
Oh man, Rob, it's so good. I think that it helps too, like with my kids, because they will have a thing in their life that is so trivial to me, but it's so big to them. It is their suffering. It's so
Right.
big, you know. I'm in basically essentially 3 teenagers. Not, I mean, one of them's older now, but essentially. And I mean, the other day, one of them came to me with a real, I mean, they're just bummed out about life in general, just like really struggling. And my first thought is like, we can fix this in 5 minutes. This is not big. And then I was like, no, what would Michelle do? She would coach, she would listen,
WWMD.
she would help them come to the solution, not try to fix it for them. And so I listened, and
That's true.
it was like God showed me. He was like, hey, he just wants you to listen. Just listen to the problems. Don't fix them. Just listen and say, I'm sorry that your day's been hard. Or, you know, hey, I'm here for you. If there's anything I can do, I'm here, but I'm sorry. You know how hard that is for people like me? I fix everything. I'm looking for things to be fixed. Oh, you got a crooked painting on your wall, I'll straighten it. Like, I'll fix everything. Oh,
And
so
yet
God,
you still haven't fixed my door, Philip. You still have not fixed my door.
Well, what
you're
door?
still rolling around with a janky door?
What doors were? What door did you break?
Philip knows which one.
Yeah, it's the rear door won't unlock or the window won't go down or something. That switch would take 15 minutes to swap out.
And you've been here 3 years.
Man, you could have fixed Malcolm's car door. No, that's too many doors. That's the whole car. Never
Fix
mind.
it, Phil. Fix it, Phil.
Yeah.
You know what though? Honestly, if all I did all day was fix people's problems, I would be so happy, but it probably wouldn't be what God wants me to do. But I would love it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a good discussion, guys, because I think that at least for me, this is really helpful. And I like your insight. Is there anything else you want to add to it? We'll wrap up in just a little bit, but anything that you wanted to say on this? Nope.
I hope people didn't forget that the call is to not separate and segregate, but to come together in your suffering. When we isolate, that's when the enemy does his best work.
Mm-hmm.
Because then he begins to undo all of your theology. He gets you to doubt God.
Yep.
And so then you have unrealistic expectations about life and about people. And
Yep.
then you find yourself trying to figure out how to numb the pain.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then you become prideful about it. I don't have a problem.
Yep.
And then you find yourself sinking into the selfism, telling God that this should not be happening to you and that all the people should be doing these things for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a slippery slope. And when you do it alone, who's there to help you? So if you're listening to this podcast and you're struggling with something right now, I want to ask you, who are your people? Who's the small group? Who's the mentor? And if you don't have any of those things, I always said that if my kids died of starvation living in my house, it was their fault. And what I mean by that, there's food all over this place. There's no why you should ever starve living under my roof.
Now,
In the
my roof,
same
you
way-
might die. But not really.
Yeah, my son has tried to find a snack at your house.
See, right.
He said it's
He
a
can't.
barren
That's his
desert.
house. Right. And so my point is that if you are at Eastlake, even as an attender, the scripture is true. You are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses that can help.
Rob.
Don't starve. Don't starve.
There's
So
no
I
need.
got robbed twice today. I got him with God slide in the DMs, and I got him with witnesses.
Yeah.
I feel a rap song coming up.
Let's go.
Oh dear. Yeah, but you are right. There is always something new happening at Eastlake.
Yeah.
There is always something. There's a way that you can connect to people. There's a way that you can learn and grow.
That's right.
And if you're not taking advantage of it, and if you're isolated, it's because it's your choice.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep. So join in the party. Find some people.
Get that.
Yes, party people.
Find some party people. Okay, guys. Well, we're going to sign off because we got Summer Rama tonight. We got people going to Rwanda. Be praying for them. They leave Thursday. And we've got Rob, where are you going?
So we're going to
Timbuktu?
the Twin Cities, 20 of us. It is Malcolm's training trip for a big mission trip. So he's done a small thing in Norway last year, and I'm taking him this year in the hopes that next year he will do it himself. But having a chance to kind of go through all the paces of planning and executing an incredible ministry partnership in the Twin Cities. So pray for us. We have a very long drive ahead of us. We're 1,300 miles each way. We're doing roughly half of that. Actually, we're doing more than half of that on day one, so that the next 2 days are slower and we're able to actually do some stops to do some honest conversations about ministry and stuff.
Mhm.
So pray for us. It's going to be a great week. We are going to be exhausted, but God showed up in huge ways, and we are going to get to bless the pants off these ministries because of the generosity of many of the people that will have access to this podcast, and just the way they rally behind our students.
Woo! Good stuff.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you Sunday or some other time. Who knows?
Julie?
All right.
Yep. All right. See you later.
Good night.
Eastlake Community Church is an intentional, multicultural community empowered by the Holy Spirit. We passionately pursue a loving relationship with God and everyone Jesus was sent to die for, here, near, and far.
Yeah, maybe Ray, you could test your microphone doing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air rap.
Oh, wait.
How
If
does
I'ma
it go?
do
Where does
that-
it start?
All right.
It's gonna lay
So
down.
you want the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. All right.
That mic does sound good.
Now, this is the story about how my life got flipped upside down. I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there so I can tell you how I came about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. In West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground where I spent most of my days, chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, and all the shooting came some b-ball outside the school. When I was a couple of guys who were up to no good, started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight, and my mom got scared and said, "You're gonna move with your auntie and uncle in Bel-Air." I begged and I pleaded with her one day, but she packed up my suitcase and sent me on my way. She gave me a kiss and then gave me a ticket. I put my Walkman on and I said, I might as well kick it.
Oh, he's not doing he's not doing the theme song. He's doing the solo, the release, the single release.
Oh yeah, Ray just went to another level.